Alright, hey.
What's going on?
I'm here with Soleil Weinberg. How do I say your last name?
Weinberg.
Soleil Weinberg. Hey, dude, we've been hanging out for a few minutes, but thanks for being on the podcast today. One of the reasons I asked you to come on was because of strictly how talented you are at providing sound baths for people, and always quite the contrarian in terms of always being an open-hearted individual with new ideas. And honestly, I hope to tap into a little bit more about that about you, because I personally look up to individuals in society that can take the chances to move to a new space, endure through troubling times, and then all around be able to reconcile and weave together a sort of friendship in a way. And I mean, that's a little personal because you and I weren't always good friends. In fact, we lived together at one point, and we didn't get along, to put it nicely.
Yeah.
We had a few conversations that were not recorded that were not very nice.
Well, thank you for that wonderful, beautiful intro, Will.
Oh, and we've apologized and stuff, but we've gone through that. But
We're all good now. And actually, I actually, the way I remember it, and I'd love to talk about everything that you are interested in sharing in me today. Though I do remember in the beginning we were getting off on a pretty good foot. I mean, the first thing you did, you offered a ride to me if I needed anything, and I did, and I offered you some to go out to Kirby Lane, and we went and ate out together and had a good conversation. Yeah, and that was like the first time we met, really. So it felt good, and just anyways, we're here now. We're friends, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Likewise, totally understandable. I think at the time there was about 9 people living at that one place at any given time, and I learned a lot about myself and the limits of myself.
1.5 bathrooms, by the way.
Yeah, you know what? We finally wrote, "It's cool to be clean" on the bathroom mirror, and we're doing good. I mean, and this kind of feeds into what we were talking about beforehand, about how literally personal health, not necessarily hygiene, but more about literally your diet, and how coming to grips with how the diet that you implement into your lifestyle can affect literally the amount of generations that survive on the planet Earth. And isn't, let's just let that sizzle like it was a Michael Jackson lyric in a video, and he's just pointing down at the puddle of that fact.
Yeah, it's just people eating wheat. Wheat grows in these. Does that look appetizing? We can't even digest it. We have to process it and process it some more before it's even cookable. And then when it's cookable, it's barely digestible by people, especially these new wheats. But that's a whole thing. Another thing, just the generations of people being watered down genetically by these foods that actually destroy our bodies on a compounded, minute level that we don't notice, but now we're noticing, and being the #1 country in all kinds of illnesses. But getting into health started first, actually, for me in getting into music. And that's that.
How?
You're saying, I do very nice sound baths, and I appreciate that very much, and I've been doing them now for over 10 years.
Let me just say, I've actually never experienced one of your sound baths. I've only overheard one. It was just like, that's nice.
Oh, thank you.
And I actually jammed with you in the other room at one point when you were sound bathing Derek. I remember I tuned my bass way down, and y'all didn't even hear me, but it was really cool.
Well, I will absolutely, by the end of the day before you leave here, I will take my didgeridoo and give you a sampling of what it is to have a sound.
Would you do it for the podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
Yeah. I haven't warmed up for the day, so it'll just be some impromptu buzz, but I feel good about it. Anyways, so how I got into it, I was always fascinated growing up with the sound of the didgeridoo, and I never knew what it was and what it's called, anything anyone knew. I couldn't even point it out because I couldn't find a song that had it. And when I was about just 19, 20 years old, I was working at a bar, served food, and it was a blues club, theater, lounge, really cool place, karaoke, and there's a band that played that had a didgeridoo. Finally, my moment, asked the guy what it was, told my girlfriend the time, and she ended up getting me one for Christmas that year.
Aww.
So, yeah, that was over 12 years ago, and since that time I got the didgeridoo, I spent 2 months, 2 hours a day straight playing it every single day.
That's how you get good at stuff.
Yeah, I was just so obsessed. And the funny thing about it is that whole entire 2 months I spent trying to play the didgeridoo, I actually was playing the didgeridoo and didn't know it because it doesn't sound, no one told me it doesn't sound the same playing it as it does listening. At all.
Oh, same with your voice. I mean, a lot of people I've been close with comment on how funny my voice sounds to them over the, after it's been processed through a microphone. And I remember being young, hearing recordings of my voice and being like, what? That's totally different. Now, I've kind of like equalized it on both ends, but...
yeah, so getting into the didgeridoo and not knowing that fact, 2 months just started blowing that horn, blowing that didge, and finally someone said, wow, it sounds so amazing, and everybody just said it sounded amazing, and then I've heard a recording finally after those 2 months, and I realized that, wow, yeah, that's my realization, I don't like this instrument anymore. And I actually probably not going to play it anymore, but I got it, and I want to circular breathe, at least since I have it. I feel like that's a skill I should have, so I'm going to play it until I can circular breathe. And then I'm going to quit it.
Interesting use of a tool.
And so that was kind of like why I held on to it, really. I couldn't make the sound I wanted to hear, and it was pointless to me at that point. And then, after another couple of weeks, I finally got circular breathing down. And as I was putting the didgeridoo down for good, a couple of days went by, and the people that were living with me at the time, there was 3 females, and they all were asking why I stopped playing because they loved it so much, and there's something that they enjoyed falling asleep to.
Aww.
So I would play it for them at night, to relax and fall asleep to.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is I noticed that they would snore less. And I thought that was a weird observation. People thought I was pretty crazy when I talked about it at work and called me kind of loony.
No, that's totally understandable.
I mean, think about 12 years ago. Sound healing or bathing or meditation, my journeys, whatever you want to call it.
It's curing the snoring. That's funny.
Yeah. I don't know if I was curing the snoring, but I really felt like there was a difference in the quality of sleep that they were getting from hearing it upon falling asleep versus not hearing it and experiencing it. And so I started doing research, and I found some things online that were saying Aborigines use it as a healing instrument. It's the world's first nature-made instrument, not made by man.
Interesting.
And that the vibrations of the didgeridoo actually make people have illness for 30 to 70% less time than illness normally carries on for, and help women who've been infertile have children after having infertility for so long, and with making people feel better generally.
Well, who doesn't need that in their life? Like I've always said, people are entitled to medicine, not necessarily the abuse of medicine, but certainly the concept of healing is something that should be accessible to everybody. And what's beautiful about being in this present age is that healing takes many, many forms now. Like before I was an adult, my idea of a healer was completely different. In the course of living my life, it's totally changed. Before, I would go to doctors to prescribe me medication because I was unsatisfied And when that became unexpressible, I became depressed. And so they would prescribe me drugs and stuff, but because I had been taking amphetamines from such a young age, I remember speaking to my mother very naively, saying, like, when I take those pills, I'm not me anymore. I lose my creativity. That's how I felt, that somehow, like, my wits were crucial in in the weirdest way. I think maybe that the similarity between abstaining from taking drugs in any sort of AA program. At a young age, I wanted to abstain from taking drugs that were trying to affect me as a personality within a failed system. Mm-hmm. And I knew that from a very young age, that, just because of the behaviors of the role models in my life and how they would, they would do things I disagreed with as a child.
Yeah.
And that says something about the like nature of the nature of being a child and how genuinely naive it is, but genuine nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, even though a child's naive or ignorant, you're right, and you're absolutely right in the sense of that the system, for instance, someone who commits a crime or steals something because they're hungry and they're poverty and they're on the streets, and you ask yourself, well, they commit this crime, they have to atone for it. Perhaps they made that choice. However, they're a product of certain things that are happening, or if a more violent crime, it's that the way they were raised, they're not saying that they're not responsible for their actions, but going deeper into that, how they got to the place they are, resembles a lot of the way things are set in society and the way that certain people think, or certain systems are ran that could, classrooms without windows, circumcision at birth, teaching us that sexual harassment is okay at birth without consent. But that's a whole deeper topic.
Well, it's all relevant. And I was literally talking to a teacher friend yesterday who teaches in a classroom without windows. And he says that it calls for a lot of decompression and a lot of venting. And I think that a lot of times people who might be concerned with being humble, or if you identify as somebody who struggles with people pleasing even, that you feel like it's inappropriate to vent or talk to somebody about your issues. And that
is unhealthy.
It's called suppression, actually. And you're logically convincing yourself not to speak up because in some way you're more humble, or
you're on a higher level, or maybe you're more in control, quote quote,
or passive. You're trying to be passive, and you don't want to hurt anybody at the extent of you hurting yourself. But that's inadvisable.
And what ends up happening is you bottling up the emotions, which causes internal chemical reactions, releasing products that damage your body in ways that actually can be damaging to the mind as well, and warp your train of thought to a place where an individual reacts, out of fear or stress. And when we're under stress, we think up to 70% less cognitivity, and so that's why people have bursts of screaming or meltdowns, because they can't think in that moment, and there's a lot of information coming at them they have to process.
So how could the answer to this stimulation that what you just explained seems to me to fit under the category of a stimuli that a person has lived through that provides what we account as our experience.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we think that stimulating more is the answer to that? You know, to the extent that you think that there's not going to be an end to the stimulation. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand when people do psychedelics that they're stimulating their mind in such a way that they're, in a sense, hallucinating manifestations of their imagination. And it's being clinically tested right now that you can use that for real healing that's like
Absolutely.
proven to help people. But the truth of the matter is that not everybody should be taking psychoactive drugs. And
Sure.
I can relate this whole situation back personally to when I was 17 years old, and my psychiatrist who was prescribing me, I think it was Wellbutrin or something. I remember the one time I talked to him, it was very short, only like 5 minutes, you know, and he asked me like how I was feeling, and I was like, well, I was thinking about killing myself because, you know, and because of this, and that, because of the drama that was going on in my life at the time, and I just couldn't really understand the bigger picture. He warned me not to smoke weed while I was on these things because they hadn't been FDA tested to interact with cannabis, which is like a very interesting thing because it is an uncharted territory of sorts, right? That could potentially unstabilize you, but all these instabilities that we would apply to ourselves through the actions of our diets or of our you know, if we act on a resentment or something like that, either towards somebody or towards ourselves. Pardon me, I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, I mean it's relative to music and what
I catch
healing.
myself sometimes that I want to pause so it doesn't just seem maniacal, but all of those situations can be retributed through healing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to medicate yourself outside of something as simple as music, right?
Yes.
Right.
Wonderful. That we made full circle, and it's all relative as well. And yes, so you said stimulation, bringing it back to the first question. What is stimulation? The answer, music is stimulation, but really, in our waking consciousness, everything is stimulation because you can't see anything. The light, you know, am I here in front of you? You know, what do you see? The light hits me, goes into your rods and cones, the shadows produce an image, and it gets in your mind, and so you see an image of me through the product of your mind, but really, your imagination and all that, blah, blah, yeah. But music, stimulation, I feel like when we look at vibrations and that on a microscopic level our bodies are just vibrations, waves, then we know that what I listen to today, might not like it as much tomorrow, or the second time I hear it, or I might love it some more, and might have to be in the mood for it, like a movie, a song. I have to be in the mood for it, or sometimes it can sweep me off my feet or irritate me, and then I feel different about it later. It just depends on what I'm going through in my life. And so when people say sound healing, I want to break a myth or a misinterpretation that is my opinion, but I've theorized that sound healing, all sounds can be healing in some way if you're in the mood for it, used properly and timed right in the right setting. And all sounds can be very damaging in a way, or irritating if you don't want to hear, or it's not in the right place for you. Like, you know, if your grandma made, you know, lavender cookies and played opera all the time and she beat you, you're gonna hate the smell of lavender cookies and opera.
That's like the end of Clockwork Orange. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Clockwork Orange, just turn the volume down for the next 20 seconds. But in Clockwork Orange, he just like begins to go insane every time he hears a certain song by Beethoven, I believe. But all right. Spoiler alert over. The concept that you're talking about is really relative to the idea of that Fugasm song I shared with you that you're actually a part of. You played Didgeridoo on that track.
I thought I heard.
And the idea of that song is that it's so it's I want to say it's crazy, but it's very specific. So it's it's like it's calculated. It's not insane. It's meticulously exaggerated so that you can find some sort of solace within yourself if you choose to disregard that music. Just know I really appreciate it, and it really makes me feel good. but it's not for everybody.
Yeah. And so, when people say, oh, I'm a sound healer, it begs the question, is like, well, sound is preferable to each individual, as beauty is an eye of the beholder. Each person's preference of sound is different, and you to say that you're going to heal someone with sound, it's very well can happen, and it's an art, though, and no discredit. However, it's a little ignorant or naive, and what's more it would be is a sound meditation, a sound journey, or a sound bath. These are things where you're using sound to take somebody to a place of meditation or a place of conscious, mindful awareness, and bring them outside themselves or within themselves, depending on how you carry that sound about and that hold that space. And so when you look at sound from that perspective, you really work with the individual and where they're at. And so when we get back to your question of, is this too much stimulation, we see where are you at right now in life, and really get in touch with the person and their emotions and the place they are, and create a space that's going to bring to the level of stimulation that you want to take them to, and you hold that container and you bring them down or up to that level that is secure, and the environment that you have advertised or shared that you're going to be taking them to. And they've agreed.
Oh, pardon me.
Go ahead.
So they've agreed, and it seems to me that the difference between a sound healing and then a sound journey is just past and present tense, right? Like, you are going on a sound journey, but afterwards, if you can project it, it was a sound healing.
Yeah.
And that's a key point I think I might have heard you saying, was that the healer isn't so much anybody but the self. And the idea of a shaman, in my mind, if it was one with integrity, would be somebody who illuminates that as an option. Because certainly self-redemption is the only thing that really prevails. Like if you're trying to heal the self for anybody but the self, are you even healing yourself? That's like a Alcoholics Anonymous idea, that like it's not going to work unless you're doing this for yourself. And somehow it's hard, right? It's hard for people to think about the self in terms of something that deserves healing.
Yeah, there is Rife, and Rife, came up with ways to use sine waves to find the matching vibrations of things and the antagonizing vibrations of things to literally enhance growth or reverse or cause destruction to cell development through this use of sounds. Just like when you hear an irritating sound or a sharp sound that may cause you to jolt, that sound disrupting you, on a very small level, is breaking apart pieces of information inside your body in waves.
But on another way, and this is some like Kaufman-esque idea, whereas when you hear that sound, it is, in a sense, breaking apart your patience, but, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, and it just is transferred, and you actually further magnify your concept of what truth is.
Swelling more would be probably a more accurate word then.
I like that. Yeah.
Swelling versus breaking apart. Yeah. Like
Yes, yeah. Far more organic.
sort of like a wave is spiking in the sounds.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So now, going back to this healing, with sound and getting in tune, there are certain sounds that do have medical application. And what I mean by that is we know that ultrasound therapy is used in the medical field, and ultrasounds are higher vibrational waves that penetrate through the cells of the body and reach deeper down to like bone marrow and stimulate that area of the body and the brain, like vibrational acupuncture. The brain sends white blood cells and information and checks out the area, and that information has focus upon it, and that focus helps with healing, quote unquote, or regeneration, or at least stimulates the area. And so we can say that playing an instrument like the didgeridoo and certain other instruments can produce ultrasound waves and induce the same effect, as well as a didgeridoo or a drum has bass frequencies, and the bass frequencies actually you feel physically vibrate you just like a bass speaker.
Weird.
And that moves the blood in your body, that moves the organs. It's like jumping on a trampoline. The lymphatic system moves, so you're doing work with the lymphatic system.
Do you think you could tell if a woman was pregnant eventually after like many like experiences having like didged like non-pregnant women, and then like all throughout the term of their pregnancy? Do you think that kind of sensitivity towards the waves that you're talking about could be developed?
Can you put that in another way?
Sure. Like, so say like you feel the bass from a didgeridoo resonate within your body, right? So I imagine you could, in a sense, if you were either the woman who is being affected by the what were the waves you were speaking of?
The bass waves, ultrasound.
The ultrasound waves, that's it. Maybe they could feel a difference within them had they, if they had a person growing in them, or, if like somebody who was really sensitive could like hold their hands up to the person or hold the person in a way to where they felt them too. And so like they were like, oh yeah, there's a person growing in here, all right, just feel the vibes. It's totally different than like before we fucked.
I have wanted to do a test, because their didgeridoos actually, didgeridoos, the reason why I bring it up is because it's the main instrument that I play and use for sound meditation journeys and so forth. But this didgeridoo has hertz, that averagely range from 70 to 30 hertz, and that is actually in the lower hertz, 60 to 30 range is where the woman's womb, same under a scientific measuring device, measures the same amount of hertz from a woman's womb when a baby is developing. And so you actually hear from didgeridoos that are made by nature and some man-made the sound of the womb when you were a baby. And so actually, for playing for tens of thousands of people over all these 12 years, I have had a common few phrases that people say unrelated in all places that I hear over and over and over and over again, people commonly say. And it's things like, I felt like I was underwater. I felt like I was in the womb again. I have so many people, hundreds of old people have told me, and, things like, the last time I thought of being a child or a baby being held by my mom was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. The last time I had a memory of being a baby, I can't even remember, or I felt so comforted, like my mom was holding me again, and I had the first thoughts of my mom again in 10 years. Just like so many different things related to the mother, the womb, water,
Wow, that's beautiful. It sounds like that quote from the newish Bongle album Codex 6. He's like, remember a time where everything was just all right. Because he's like an old man, you know, and he's got...
I actually didn't see that. So I don't know.
I'll sample it in here. I'll go buy the album and sample it.
But I have been wanting to do this test, for a long time of like womb. I don't know if we can call it therapy, but play the didgeridoo for a woman while a baby's developing, and see if that enhances.
Make a race of superhumans.
Yeah, because it's a soothing
Why
song.
not?
Everybody seems to love it. It seems to enhance. The same feeling of that comfort, when you first were in the womb, which means that before you had emotional baggage, before you had trauma, you feel safe, you feel comfort, and it induces healing in the body. When the body relaxes, it starts to heal itself. And so there's all these effects, a trifecta of ultra bass, ultrasound, motherly love, and psychologically your body disarms itself, your mind disarms itself, and you induce this healing effect in your body. Your blood pH levels rise, your breathing deepens, and it's just very therapeutic feeling.
I would like to add now that I know for a fact that not everybody is blessed with a completely perfect pregnancy, and I know like a lot of people had parents who had a lot of anger, and so at that point you're not even really you're still your mom.
Yeah, here's a true story that it's I don't want to dismiss that I don't know what to say, but didgeridoo could help, with the development. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I can say, true story, when I was playing didgeridoo, so most of the time I've played for either groups or individual one-on-ones, and I was playing for a woman who one-on-one, and she was laying on the massage table, and she had a little dog that was 11 years old, and it was a female Chihuahua, tiny little toy cupper thing. And she said, I asked her if it was fixed, and she said no, it's sterile. It's never gone in heat its entire life once, never bled ever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that's just like pretext to the story, and I'm playing for her, sometime in, and the dog jumps on her lap, on her stomach, and so the dog seemed to like it, so the hearing of it, so I pulled it over the dog, played it over the dog in her stomach, and within 30 seconds I saw blood dripping down her stomach.
Oh, dude, that's kind of gross, yet somehow biblically miraculous.
And I was like, are you bleeding? And then she looks, and she jumps up, and her dog is in heat.
It's a miracle!
And started, and the dog seemed to be stimulated by the didgeridoo's vibration in her female parts. And, I did more research, and again, the whole...
Is that bestiality, technically?
The whole thing with the Aborigines believing that it helps with infertility, it just realized that if the didgeridoo makes a similar sound as the womb, then it vibrates at the same frequencies as the female reproductive system, then it would stimulate the female reproductive system if it were sterile, and tingling, tickling, stimulating into reactivating possibly, and causing the engine to start again. And it makes sense.
Yeah, right now you remind me of Bill Clinton during his presidency. I did not fertilize that dog.
Yeah. So,
I did not fertilize that dog with my didgeridoo.
And
I'm joking, you totally did, man. That's awesome.
Who knows, but what's crazy too is women who have been on their menstrual cycle, moon cycle, the women who've been on their moon cycle as me play didgeridoo, and I could get testimonies easily, people saying that they feel alleviated with receiving didgeridoo during that time when they're cramping. And so that's just another thing that I've experienced, and so all these things are just testaments to me believing that the didgeridoo is a real healing instrument applicable versus using just sound for healing or music for healing, but actually the waves of a didgeridoo can be applied as a somewhat of alleviating tool itself.
And this is a really good pivotal point to just loop back around to what we were speaking of originally about how diet is not unlike the music that you listen to. And I can put it this way to where if you are intaking sounds that you love and that heal you, it is not unlike eating a food that is completely sustainably nutritional.
And to add to that point, if you are eating foods that aren't good for you and you're listening sounds that are healing you, but these sounds are getting disrupted by the vibrations of these lower vibrational foods, then what can happen is that you're having a clash, and that to fully receive the benefits of something like the sound waves, you would want to have an environment that can harbor the echoing or continuation of the sound waves flourishing in your body.
Yeah, think about it this way. If you're making an eggnog on Christmas or Hanukkah or what have you, you don't want to use milk or a dairy product to make that eggnog, because it'll look good and probably taste a certain way, it'll actually curd in your stomach and it'll produce it'll be rough on your digestive system, and it might not be the best time had you not used a dairy product. And in this sense, if your body was to receive the maximum, and let me just see if I'm understanding you, like, the maximum potential of this experience involves a diet.
Yeah. For instance, when you take probiotics, they don't work. And the reason why they don't work is because most people's bodies, if you're ingesting grains of any kind, but specifically wheat, or if you're ingesting dairy products, your pH levels of your lower intestine, or your small intestine are so high. Probiotics only work in the lower intestine, and to get to the lower intestine, you gotta pass the small intestine and the stomach acids. And quite frankly, the pH levels below 7.0, no probiotic's gonna make it unless it's on a carrier like a prebiotic, and even then, good luck.
Okay, so let's talk about pH for a second and alkaline levels within the certain solutions that we find within.
So you can't even receive the benefit.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So I'm really glad that you're more into diet, and honestly, I hadn't really anticipated talking about that today, but I'm so glad we did. I'm personally fasting right now, so talking about food's like making me drool.
Ooh. But
it's okay. I'm fine. The idea behind diet has not just influenced. It hasn't just influenced my daily cravings for junk food, which I think are, they can be as debilitating as having a high libido and being, and not being like, not copulating. Like, that kind of suppression leads to some trouble in society. Mm-hmm. If you're not expressing yourself, you're gonna wind up with some issues, not unlike constipation.
Yeah, if you're not in contact with humans, especially even human contact is very important.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy with the culture that I've come in contact with, kind of a pun, that is very big on hugging, doing heart-to-heart hugs, and man, lately my life has been flowing in and out of that culture into like the other culture, and I met someone the other day who wanted to shake my hand, and like, I kind of do like this wimpy, like, it's really good to see, like, I'm holding their hand, like, we're holding hands, handshake, and like looking at them like, I would hug you, and then like, they'll be like, wait, let's try that again. Like, I did that to a woman, and I guess she took it the wrong way, but man, today being a male there's a lot of pretension with just being a male today, I've got to say it makes me a little sick and aware more so of how I'm behaving in public. Like, I can't tell you how many times someone's talked to me, like a woman has talked to me, and then I just face them and walk towards them, and then I frightened them because they didn't see me, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're like, oh no, and that maybe it's because I'm sneaky.
Yeah. There's
wow, huge.
People do have rightfully so reasons to be scared this time, especially with social media allowing everyone to put a microscope on every single thing that's going on and every place, and it's really hard to gauge that. But to alleviate, 2% of all deaths on Earth are violent, and the other 90% aren't, so that's a good feeling if you think about that. But going to, we're talking about health on all the levels: human contact, diet, music, and all the other levels, passion and so forth. But, to answer this whole thing about pH levels in the body, music, food, diet, yes, when you relax, your body's releasing dopamine or oxytocin, endorphins of kinds, and so yeah, you feel good. pH rises, and when you're stressed out, it releases other things that causes pH to lower. Have you ever felt when you're angry or afraid, your stomach, you get the butterflies and you get hot, you squeeze your fist and your chest burns, you grind your teeth, your throat goes out, your voice goes out, whatever.
That even comes out in people's sleep, in your dreams you can behave that way.
Yeah, so, music helping, but, if you're having a bad diet, it's hard to receive, and same thing, if your diet's bad, it's hard to even receive the benefits of what you're eating, and so if your pH levels are lower, you can't receive things like your probiotics and even some of your prebiotics, and so when you're eating a higher fiber diet with lower grains, no wheat, no dairy, and things like that, you start to create movement through your body, regular movement, regular bathroom schedules. People are supposed to poop 3 times a day on average. When you drink more water, your urine should be pretty much look like water. And so when you get to these levels, the main thing you can do, if you cut out wheat and sugar in your life, your life will change. But refined sugars, of course, you can still have as much fruit as you like, really, I say. As long as you're creating the proper environment. So the microbiota, bacteria in your large intestine, once you have these higher fiber diets, and carbohydrates are your best friend, actually. It's the opposite. Everyone thinks they're enemy. They're really your best friend, more important than protein, fat in a lot of ways. In Africa, people have 45% of their diet is carbohydrates, fibers, and resistant starches. And in America, our diet's only 4%. We're the number 1 country in colon cancer, and number 1 country with hemorrhoids, number 1 country with stomach cancer, and intestinal problems, gastrointestinal colitis, bacterial infections, and all kinds of things celiac disease. We're number 1 in all of these things, and Africa is doing great. They have the healthiest body systems. And so I started studying the African diets and found what I've stated is 45% of their diet's fiber, and it's, when you have this regular movement, the way we get energy, people think you get energy by this new thing, ketosis, keto diet, burning fat instead of carbohydrates, so I don't have to have sugars, and we're actually harming ourselves. Really, the body doesn't need to eat that much at all. Really, the body produces hormones there's a hormone called booty rate. It's called booty rate. Real fact, look it up.
What's it called?
Booty rate. B-U-T-Y-R-A-T-E.
Booty Ray.
Booty rate, R-A-T-E.
Wow.
Booty rate.
It sounds like a rapper.
This is a hormone that's produced that when you receive good fiber in your body and it goes through your large intestine, it's like fertilizer. You're putting fertile soil into your large intestine. So then now the probiotics, when you have a higher pH, can make it past the small intestine. They survive. They'll ride on a prebiotic, like something like your fibers, like your fruit fibers or your root fibers or your veggies fibers. They'll ride on those. You take your probiotics with them, your yogurts or your kefirs, your kombuchas, your kimchis, your sauerkrauts, and then there's probiotics riding with the prebiotics, symbiotics getting right into that fertile soil. You've been eating all these fibers, that large intestine's got all this movement going, all these fibers, and bam, probiotics now have an environment that can grow and flourish in. And in this growing and flourishing, these probiotics start producing these gases and CO2 and hydrogen levels that actually act as your body converts into hormones like butyrate that act as superhuman energy givers. So we think that we have to eat all these crazy diets, and eat the right combinations of foods, the right amount of protein, the right amount of fat, the right amount of carbs, sugar, cut this out, cut that out, and we get it right. Our lifestyle, our calories burn, and we get it right. But really, that's the opposite. We've approached food completely wrong. We measure how we eat in calories and protein, fat, and carbohydrates, and that's wrong. See, food can't be approached scientifically. Food is individual, and food is also very natural in the sense that when we are eating things that we can grasp like before, that don't require a lot of cooking or processing, when we can eat things that are easy on our body, the vegetables, the root that's during the winters, roots store and survive on their own. They don't rot for months, so you can eat roots during the winters. And then other things like our sweet potatoes and celeries and broccolis and all these things that have a lot of starch in them, that when they're heated and cooled, or they're naturally eaten raw, they will go into the body and they will act as fiber, but they also act as a ground to growing these bacteria that produce these alkaloids that actually give us the energy we need, versus us trying to stuff ourselves to survive on desperate nutrients, empty nutrients of foods, because we're always hungry, and we're always hungry because we're not getting what we need.
Yeah, I've noticed that for me, I can eat healthy except when I get a craving that's really bad for some junk food. But I noticed that I just want that food because it's been a long time since I've eaten it. And when I drink kombucha, lately I've been doing a thing where I just drink a kombucha when I get a craving. I'm just I'm just gonna do that. So next time, instead of craving pizza and French fries, I crave a kombucha. And every time I crave a kombucha, that's one day less that I crave pizza and bologna or something. I don't eat bologna, but
yeah,
pizza for sure.
I mean, it's definitely good to replace cravings with alternatives, things that can wean you off or whatever. But kombucha's fantastic. It's got a little bit of caffeine in it, depending on who's brewing it, how they're brewing it. Just be careful with that, but if you're drinking too much. But yeah, kombucha is a nice stabilizer. It's a very mild probiotic. It's nice. It's nice.
So, I like how you're explaining this idea of how health can be instrumental in finding a space that you're in life that you feel like you can move forward, and that you're not stuck in some place. And this is the idea of healing, right? Is that you're not a part of the trauma. You don't identify as any trauma you might have had, but instead you're creating a pedestal that you can mount your present life on to move forward. And that's what health is about, and that's that personal identification with health that you're talking about. And it's not unlike the sound healing that we were talking about before, and how all of those things, when they're adding up together, those layers of experiential, beneficial, it's almost entrepreneurial in health, you know what I mean? It's these healthy choices to have experiences that you can build real experiences, conversations, or podcasts on. They all loop back around to this idea of, if you think that you could improve yourself, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm really down about that. The other day, I was getting a burrito from Freebirds, right? And normally I'd buy the Monster, but that day, because I'd stopped eating so much food. Like, I used to exercise a lot a few years ago, and then I stopped, but I still kept eating a lot of food to, recently I've been doing fasts, and my stomach's actually shrunk, and I look skinnier and weigh less, but I think that's fine, because it's like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be detrimental to the planet. If anything, I want to provide, or take less than I give, so that, there can be more generations of people. And that's what we were starting on, was the fact that today, the meat-based diet of much of the world is killing the Amazon rainforest, providing methane gases that prevent the sun's heat from leaving, and it's causing the glaciers to melt, and it's eradicating the cycles of the water on Earth, which there's only so much of to drink. It's only about 1%. And if we continue to industrialize cattle farming, we're wasting most of the water we could be drinking on hybridizing inbred cattle.
Yeah. What you bring up, is tackling these things. Everybody has their opinion and answer and theory on how to resolve this, and I have my own too. And I really think, instead of trying to tackle and say, oh, we need to limit the meat industry, or we need to do this or whatever, that, I'm not saying I think it needs to be standing. What I'm saying is that I feel like trying to tackle something that's been in place for so long, and that is so huge and part of so many people's lives, whether it comes to jobs or culture or belief and religion, whatever it is, it's really a touchy subject. What I can say, though, is that if you are part of people who don't believe in those things, then what you can do is each person can do it at an individual level, and that's the best thing, is that you do individually on your level. You make the choices not to eat these things, you make the choice not to do that, and you inspire other people to see vicariously. They can live and then be inspired to see that you're doing it, and educate them, then, and let them make the choice and come to it on their terms. Then you're being sharing. I think that's the best way, really, because trying to tell people why they're wrong is, it's a never-ending battle.
Well, it's not so much that I'm telling people they're wrong, because I still indulge in meat. Like, I'll give you a good circumstance. This last Christmas, for whatever reason, my uncle was displaced and had nobody see him on Christmas. And I drove over to his house, and he was like, man, I spent over $100 on this steak, and I'm going to make it for us, And I don't buy meat. For a long time, I identified as a vegetarian. But in that moment, he was putting so much care and thought and love into that meal. I ate that, and it was profound. Mm-hmm. It nourished me, and I was conscious enough to feel that energy sustain me longer than before. But the reality of it is that was an exception, because how can we relate? Well, for me personally, weak heart congestion runs in my family, so not eating red meat is it's a health idea that will save my life. So personally, it's a good idea, and that's why I speak from my perspective on this all, is that, like, well, I may as well not be shaving years off my life in the first place, and if I can be granting decades to people in the long run, why not make that deposit into the bank of the future?
Well, I'm the type of visionary, futuristic kind of person in a lot of different ways when it comes to innovation and seeing the bigger picture. And I will say, to alleviate everybody who thinks, all hell's broken loose and it's all shit for shot and it's hopeless, I tell you this, that everybody who's being born nowadays, we're at a different time where once meat was eaten for survival, and it was very hard to get, and it, but then we got to this point where it's easy to get, and so we actually are at a point where we don't even need to survive, we're thriving. So meat's like an option. It's no longer a necessity. And you look at the past, people saw the animals eating other animals, and we were hungry, and what the heck, it didn't make a difference.
The living conditions.
The living conditions
contributed to the widespread consumption of wheat, because it's easy to grow. It's not necessarily the most nutritious, but what the fuck was nutrition back then? It was all about just surviving.
Yeah, more of like foods of desperation, creating foods out of nothing, out of necessity and need and desperation and scarcity and fear and so yeah, it's understandable. And now we're in a place of thriving, and so since we're doing so well, we've created these industries, and yeah, I think the industry should end. What really goes down to is I'm not against eating meat, more so as I'm against the way that we retain it. And what we can do is, I don't even eat meat. I'm actually vegan. I eat vegan. I'm not a vegan, but
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I eat like a vegan. I mean, I'm completely grain free. No nuts, no seeds, no grains, no cereals, no breads. I only eat roots and vegetables and fruits now. However, going back to what I believe about meat, why I think it's okay in certain ways, is this: if you took away the ability to sell and buy meat, you took away the industry of producing meat, and you only made it that meat was only accessible if you hunted it yourself without the use of technology or automatic weapons, but just handheld weapons like spears, bows, whatever, knives, and you had to go and get that meat yourself. How hard it would be. The animals would have an equal chance. It would be breaking down to nature. It would be less encouraging for everybody to go do that. People would have to do it in groups. It wouldn't be that easy. You would appreciate it. You would make use of it. You would definitely feel good about about if you're gonna do that again. That boar broke my leg last time. Like, if I'm gonna do this, I really want this. It's not worth it the same, and it becomes something of value. And if we couldn't buy and sell it, but only get it ourselves, then it would change the way animals and everything were treated and respected. I think at least to make everybody happy, in the sense of hey, meat eaters gotta eat meat. But again, alleviating what I was saying before is the new generation, this new time. Kids are being born now with the choice of not meat. They're more compassionate in these generations, and so it tells me that everybody who's growing up are naturally becoming vegetarians and eating vegans. And so eventually in the next 20 to 50 years, there's going to be not much meat eating happening anyway, and I think it's going to be a natural transition with the times, and we should let the generations play out.
Meat kids, I remember my grandfather, he lived to be about 90 years old, and towards the end of his life, he wasn't eating a lot of meat because it was rough on his system. And I think that was a wise decision, and I took light of that and decided to take upon a healthy directive for my diet. And I'm not trying to preach anything. I'm just trying to say that this is how things like my asthma, things like my girlfriend's arthritis, the secrets to alleviating our illnesses are within our diet more than you can imagine. Like, did you know that dairy contributes to mucus within the lungs and the sinus? Like, I know that because I have asthma, and so when I've got bad chest congestion, it's all about caffeine. Maybe some turmeric gives me an itchy mouth, so I have to do like high-end, like something spicy will open up your capillaries, and this is a good point to tie it all back into opening up. And you said that you would possibly be interested in doing a brief didgeridoo session for us. All right, here, we're going to pause it and set everything up. We'll be right back. And then afterwards, let's regroup, all right?
All right, cool. sample.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That got exciting. I heard like a weird like kabuki, like a weird kabuki spirit.
That's
That
cool.
looked weird, and I was like, man, that looks weird. And then it said in your didgeridoo, it's like, you look weird right now. That's so funny.
It's like
Thank you.
psychedelic.
Yeah, no, totally. It's not uncommon for me to get brief visions while I listen to music. I think about it in terms of shapes, you know, like you can make sharp sounds and round sounds, but that was cool, dude.
Yeah,
I want to say it had peaks and valleys. The orientation of it all was very exciting. I want to say that it was upbeat, and I don't feel calm. I feel more excited.
Yeah, I was actually playing in tune with like the vibe that we've been carrying on through this conversation. I definitely wasn't trying to calm you down or make it therapeutic in any way. More so, give you a sample of feeling the didgeridoo itself and hear some of the playing and yeah, go over the peaks and valleys of actually the different effects it can have on your body as playing with you. Some people have told me that when I play for them in the higher notes over their chest, it feels like it's pulling the congestion out of their body, and when I go drop into the lower tones, it feels like it's bringing them down into their body and bringing everything down to the stomach.
Yeah, dude, I had to fart in the middle of that. I was like, what?
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely moves the wind in your body and the mucus and, like I said, the lymphatic system and all that. So it's very interesting. It's kind of like using a plunger on a toilet in some ways. And
interesting yet effective analogy.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I feel like you did kind of floss my mind a little. If you listen to the Michael Murphy episode, he talks about how you can do this thing where you like floss your head, but you know, some yogis floss their entire bodies. They like eat a string and then collect the like a long string and then collect one end and then they do the weird thing.
Wow.
And then they have little children play
Definitely.
jump rope with them. They have children grab each side and then you hopscotch over it. Don't try that at home, kids. Don't try that at home. That is a lie. But it's just a joke. It's not merely a lie. It's merely a joke to lighten the mood. We are closing the podcast at this point. It's coming down to the hours where I actually need to go get stuff done. Like, how about this water issue in Austin, right? It's making it hard to clean yourself. You're supposed to like bathe in pre-boiled water.
Get your sponges out.
Yeah, man.
Washcloth.
You know what? That's why I've just shaved my entire body with a Bic razor, and I'm just kind of covering myself in rubbing alcohol.
Some coconut oil.
Yeah, coconut oil and rubbing alcohol. Hand sanitizer all over my face. I'm wearing goggles, of course. Try not to get into the places it might sting.
Don't forget your hospital mask.
Yeah, dude. But honestly, yeah, dude. I think that floss jump rope bit was kind of scary.
It was like, it's intriguing. I kind of want to see it, but it's a little disturbing. And
you could use your imagination. Oh, I'll make the painting for you, dude. I think about that sometimes. How like I come up with these really strange ideas, like what during a Blue Man Group concert. Like one of the guys went up to one of the other Blue Man Group dudes and like tore off his head, and then like the third Blue Man comes over and they just start playing his head as like a percussion instrument. Like, would that be too much? All these really I just want to say all of these really scary ideas
at the same time.
This is like the denial file in my mind of like things I'm not gonna make into paintings because they might people might not like that too much. But let me just say that it is Halloween and I'm trying to scare people.
About is there art?
Yeah.
Much art that's paintings with like those old cards you open up and it's like pop out,
Yeah.
cut out,
Yeah.
It's like art like that, like
Like an Alex Gray pop-up.
yeah. Like, is there like a
Oh my god, Alex Gray pop art, that pop-up art, that would be so good.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Dude,
like
yeah,
wow.
What the fuck?
Is that a thing?
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Now it is. Dibs. Now you know why I have this podcast, so I can just capture all the good ideas like it's a butterfly in the wind. And this, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Honestly, I think everybody should do pop-up gift card art with unique art. That sounds amazing. I'm inspired to do that. It's very similar to a snow cones.
Yeah, it should happen.
I'll try it out, man. I'll try it out. You know what? Thank you so much for being on this podcast. Well, I've got everyone's attention. I'd just like to announce I have my first official sponsor for this podcast, and it's the Gallery Lucid. That's out Lamar and Airport in Austin, Texas, right behind Black Star Co-op. It's hard to miss if you're driving down the street. It's right at the intersection near the Metro Rail bus station. They've got the claim of being the only truly visionary art gallery in Austin, and they're currently displaying art from many of my friends and so many more. I believe Elliot Rogers, Axiom Evan, Dixon Stovall, all these friends that we know and love are hanging art up there right now. And now that I'm talking about it, I gotta go get my piece from the last art show I hung up there. I just want to thank Eric and his partner Samantha for sponsoring this show. And if you're interested in art at all, I would say that is a wonderful place to see the most cutting edge art that's in the visionary art scene right now. It's truly a spectacle that all should indulge in at one point or the other, because what is life without a little bit of culture? Thanks everybody for tapping in once more. I'll see you again, alright, Soleil?
Yes, I'll see you guys again.
Toodles!